Finished up most of the Maxstone upgrades that I'm going to be doing at this point. It's pretty much done. Need to do a little wire securing, but for the most part, like I said, it's all finished up. Changed the body, the electronics. Most of the hardware down the bottom stayed the same, except for I changed a lot of the hex gear, a lot of the Phillips gear in the hex. But all the original gearing is still there, plastic gears. I'm actually a little intimidated on taking the gearbox apart in case something breaks. It's going to be pretty hard to. It could possibly be pretty hard to find replacements. At some point I'll get it open, probably when something breaks down. But as for now, I haven't opened the gearbox. The gearbox is all secured with hex screws as well. With Phillips screws as well, and that'll be changed out to hex whenever I open the gearbox up. But for now, I'm just going to go over a few of the upgrades and things I've done to it, just to change it up, give it a little bit of. I wanted to change the look. I didn't like the original body, so I changed that out. But I wanted to give it a little bit more strength, and what I gave it was a whole lot more strength. I'll show you as I go through the things I've done. It was a great truck before, not taken away from anything. For the price and ready to run, this truck is excellent out of the box. But you can do some really good things to it. I've just started. There's lots of things you could do to it. But for now, let me just go over the things I've done. So. First off, of course, I had to change when I changed the body, I had to change the body mounts. It's a minor thing, just a couple of screws that need to be moved, and I moved them in a little bit to accommodate the body. In order to accommodate the new electronics, I had to make an Esc mount. Get the body out of the way. The Esc mount is a Esc Plate that I put across the top. I secured it to these cross braces that they have, just to kind of give the frame a little bit more sturdiness. This Esc Plate is a two-piece that's secured with zip ties around the ends. And all the electronics are sitting right on there. I've pre-drilled holes and mounting points, etc. And everything went on there real nice. All this is sitting above the battery, which I've turned around. The battery was originally facing to the back, and now it's facing forwards because the way that I take the battery in and out is through the front. The battery used to go in from the top because there was no electronics here. The electronics used to be on the battery plate, but I wanted to raise the electronics because I wanted this to be submersible. All my electronics are waterproof, but I want to keep the electronics out of the water as much as possible. The batteries are waterproof, and they're wrapped as well before I go into a deep water situation, so that won't be an issue. For the ESCs, I went with dual castle sidewinders. These are programmed the exact same way, each of them, with brushed motors. They're programmed for brushed motors. I went with 60% drag brake in the beginning, and that turned out to be not enough, so I boosted it up to 100. The weight of the truck doesn't allow the drag brake to stop it effectively, so I went up to 100. 213, I thought that'd be too much for this truck. I didn't want that jerk stop when you let off of the accelerator, so I went with 100% drag brake. It holds it fine. It gives it a little bit of hold. The weight of the truck still wants to pull the truck down inclines, but it does just fine with 100%. I went with 75% reverse power in the beginning, and I actually dropped that back down to about 60% just because it was going too fast on reverses, and I like to have a little bit of fine-tunability when I'm doing reversing. So that's the ESCs. For the BEC, I set it to 7.4 volts to maximize the output from my servos. I'm running dual high-tech 5646 WPs. That's high-tech's best servo, waterproof servo at this point in time. It's the one that has the, I believe they just have an analog and a digital right now, whichever. This has the most torque. I switched the motors out, as I said before. I went with axial 55 turn motors in front and back. They perform well in many other trucks, and they perform outstanding in this truck. Like I said, I didn't open up the gearbox, but the combination of these motors and that gearing, it's a winner. It has decent wheel speed. A lot of my 55 turns, they just keep up with me at a steady pace when I'm walking. That's at full acceleration. This monster goes way faster than my walking pace, which is pretty fast. My walking pace is pretty fast. And this truck way outdoes my walking pace. I don't know if that's because it's dual or the gearing, but these 55 turns are working spectacular in this truck. They're cheap motors. I get them for anywhere from $10 to $15. Sometimes 20. That's a really high number. I like to keep extras of them. They're throwaway motors. If they break, you get another one at $15. I mean, you can't beat that. But the thing is, they never break on me. I've had one that I lost some performance, and then I took it out and cleaned it ran it in some water, kicked all the dirt out, and it's running perfect again. These are fully submersible, like any brushed motor. Great motors. I can't say enough about them. I run axial motors in several of my vehicles. Probably 5 or 6 vehicles have axial brushed motors in them, and I really like them. So that's what I ran here, and I've got the same great results. I'm running the stock pinion on there. I can't remember offhand what tooth count was on the stock pinion. I want to say it's 12, but I think that it might be a little bit higher than that. But anyway, the stock pinion is an extended pinion. It has a little shaft below the teeth, so you can't easily find a replacement for that. Robinson Racing doesn't have a replacement gear for that. It's something you had to order. So I decided to just try the stock gearing, which works excellent, as I just said. So I probably won't be changing the pinions on this thing. In order to get the Esc plate, to give the battery a little bit more room, I had to move these cross supports up a little better, a little higher, to give the battery a little more clearance. I installed Velcro straps in the battery, on the battery mount. It takes a little doing to get them out, but the battery's held in there pretty securely. I got one in the front and one in the back. So those hold the battery down, and then when you get to just pull the battery out the front, and it also goes back in the same way. The Velcro straps are a little hard to get secured, but once they're down, they hold the battery excellent. It doesn't move. Everything's great. So that's how I got the battery in and out. So that's right in there, and then you strap the battery in with the Velcro straps. I replaced most of the Phillips heads with hexes all around. Everything I took out that I had to put back that had a Phillips head, I replaced with hex. Just my preference. All the wires are secured with zip ties and twist ties around the back. It's really hard to secure this amount of wires, so they're pretty much secured the best I can. I do have to do a little bit of tightening up around the servo wires and the motor wires coming off. The motor wires stick out just a bit, so it's kind of, I have to try to do something about that so they don't rub against the shocks. I tried to solder them on a different way, but that didn't really work too well, so they're coming straight out with as little lead as possible. So we'll get that worked out. I can probably just secure them to the lower rod end. They have this front guard here. I'm not sure if it's there to protect a weak point in the steering, but since it's there, I left it there. It interferes just slightly when you're taking on rocks and obstacles, but it kind of helps you glide over things a little bit. So I'm not sure the benefits or the negatives of that. I almost think that it might be here to protect some weak point in the steering, like I said before. Maybe if the cross rods or take too much damage, they may break, so they put this here to compensate for that. Not exactly sure, but I'm going to leave them on there right now until it becomes a problem. There's one in the front and the rear. Like I said, I did the rear steering. I had to fabricate rear steering servo plate for the back. I did that with a solid piece of Lexan, pretty thick. Drilled it out with the Dremel. Got the rear servo installed. That's for rear steering. So now it has dual steering. It doesn't come with dual steering, but it comes set up for dual steering. So you just unscrew one beam and it enables it. You install your servo and your back wheels are moving. So you have dual steering. I installed dual high techs, like I said before, with aluminum servo horns, just for optimum strength coming out of the servos, pushing the wheels. On the wheels, I couldn't change them because I couldn't find a suitable replacement yet. These are 23mm hexes, and that's not an easy size to find. In the future, if I have problems out of these wheels, I may have to try to find a replacement or a change, or I may just order an extra set from Nitro RCX. That's all depending on whether or not I can find a good set of 23mm hexes. If I can, that's what I'll do. If not, we'll see. As for now, these work well. I've installed Proline Rock Rage tires on them. Had to do a little trimming of the tire to get it on the rim, but it's on there and it holds really pretty well. In a high torque situation, I noticed that the bead started to pull, so put a little extra material behind there to hold it on, and they work just great. I went over the electronics, dual castle Sidewinder 3s, Spectrum SR200 WP waterproof receiver, just a 200. In the future, I may change this over to a 4-channel setup so I can experiment with some mixing and independent front and rear control, also with the servos. But for now, this works just fine with the 2-channel. I use this with my DX2. It crawls over everything. I don't know if it's the torque from the motors, the grip from these Proline Rock Rages, but it crossed my 14 steps in my home with no problem, which is something I've never been able to say for my other RCs. That may be just the size of this thing, but it handles those steps with no problem. Use Traxxas foam inside the tires. Traxxas Summit foam gives them a nice soft plush and lets the tires do what they need to do. Go ahead and grab. I think that's about it for the things I had to upgrade. Well, the things I upgraded, nothing that I had to upgrade. I had to make a steering link for the rear servo from Axial Parts because they do not supply that with the stock. But yeah, that's about it. And it's a beast now. It was a beast before, but this thing has so much power behind it just with those little Axial 55 turn motors now. Crazy difference. So that's it for now. I ended up not changing the stock oil in the shocks. They still haven't been opened. It just performed so well with those, so I decided not to change it. So now I'm going to run it for a little while outside in the elements and see how it does, and see if I need to change anything or adjust anything, and I'll do videos for that as well.